Welcome to the Michelle Pascoe Hospitality Podcast. And I am Michelle, and I thank you very much for lending your ears to listen to this podcast for those in the hospitality and gaming industry in Australia and globally. But it's not just for hospitality. If you're a leader, if you're somebody who cares about the customer connection and the service and the experiences that you provide in your business, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome, everyone, to today's podcast. Now, I saw this guy having a conversation at a conference all about food and the restaurant and catering industry late May in Sydney. And just hearing his story, but more importantly, seeing the passion in his eyes and the way he described what he does in his business, I thought, I've got to have him on here. So today, I'm going to be introducing you to Phil Dawson. With an extensive and varied hospitality background to draw on, Phil Dawson is now undertaking his life's passion project in running Ruby Lane Whole Foods, a 100-seat venue that promotes the health and well-being of its patrons and the community at large whilst providing a memorable experience. Engaging with the community through interactive education programs and feature dinners, they are out to change people's perception on sustainability and what's possible with real food. Drawing on Phil's experience, they deliver highly respectable KPIs in a market that is traditionally challenging to do so, which puts them ahead of the pack. Phil also loves the opportunity that owning a business provides in being able to give back to the community and support charities like Local Kind, Royal Far West, and Head High Schools, which we're going to talk about later. Ruby Lane is also the proud winner of the Northern Beaches Sustainability Award, coveted magazine Coffee Championships, a finalist in the Restaurant and Catering Association Best Breakfast in Sydney, and the Sydney Water Sustainability Award. Having owned 3 cafe restaurant venues and being responsible for overseeing multiple company-owned sites and franchising, and also running the state for a franchise cafe business, Phil has extensive multi-site operational experience. This is going to be a very interesting interview. Prior to cafes, he was a venue manager for one of the largest bar groups in Sydney, Keystone Hospitality, overseeing venues such as the Australian Hotel, Scuba, Cargo, Bungalow 8, and the Glenmore Hotel. Phil believes in managing processes and then developing a team of leaders that can execute the processes at the highest level. And that just speaks beautifully to my heart, because I'm everything about the customer experience, but also about developing those leaders and creating businesses, Phil, that you've done that people want to work in and also want to dine in. So welcome to my podcast. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for that big intro too. It's really funny when you hear it out loud. You're like, "What?" It's just still this sense of imposter syndrome sometimes, isn't there, when you hear people talk about yourself? But,
It's funny, isn't it? Because, you've achieved all these wonderful accolades, both as an individual and with your team. And it's important that we stop and acknowledge them, because I think as small business owners, we just tick it off and we go to the next thing. This is my 30th year in business. And I think of all the things in my early years, you just rush through them. So no, it's important to read your whole bio. And I know my listeners have loved hearing about it. But look, let's get into a little bit more depth, because bios are fantastic. But exactly what led you to create Ruby Lane Whole Foods?
yeah, look, it's thanks for asking, because it's funny, people just come through the doors and enjoy themselves, but the backstory is interesting, and we go through it in our induction process because it helps everyone understand it a bit more. But yeah, look, I'd been running hospitality venues for years, and I was, probably burning the candle at both ends, but being predominantly in bars. And I was also trying to start living a little bit more healthily through doing triathlons. And so I was doing an enormous amount of training for those, as well as surfing and trying to be a good husband at the time. And look, we were trying to start a young family, and things weren't really going our way. And yeah, at the same time, my wife was having some hormonal issues, and I was having some real internal health issues. So I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease that was like a gut issue, particularly. And I had been told that there was just one way to treat it. It was hereditary. There was nothing I could do about it. And I was like, well, I wouldn't mind finding out a little bit more and seeing if there's another way to go about it. And my wife had great success looking at some Chinese medical healthcare through a TCM. a naturopath and a nutritionist. And so I thought, I'm from a pretty traditional family, but I'll give it a crack. Why not? What have I got to lose? And sure enough, 8 weeks later, I was after stripping out of a lot of traditional, like just a lot of oily food, a lot of carbs and gluten and dairy and, all the alcohol and the coffee and sugar. And that sounds like a lot of the fun stuff. But I really had to strip back and stop training so much. And yeah, a lot of things changed for my life then. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, my triathlon times got better, even though I was training less than half the amount, just because I was eating better and I was training smarter, like, high intensity training instead of training 30 hours a week and just eating cleaner. And I was like, gosh, I've been through this now, and sure, it kept evolving particularly as a bloke, and that went on for a year or so with my wife, not having a place really to go out and celebrate a
Mm.
birthday, not being able to go for a business meeting somewhere I know I could eat everything, and where my values and my ethics completely changed through that whole
Yes.
process. I was like, okay, I want to know where my food comes from. I want to know who makes my
Mm.
food. I don't want to just go to a restaurant and just order off the menu. Like, I want to know the chef. I want to know who's running this place. I want to know where they're getting their food from. And that
Mm.
it narrows down, it's either back then it was like it's a fine dining place, or
Yes.
it's a little organic place maybe you can sit on a milk crate. There was nothing in between.
Yes.
Yeah, so we just wanted to make a place in between where, you could go for your meeting, you could bring have your birthday maybe, and there was a whole family of your whole table, table of your family there, and you could have Uncle Johnny, who doesn't really care what he eats, but there's a bacon egg roll on there. But we know where we smoke the meat, and we know where we get the eggs. And
Mm.
my mate around the corner, Barry Jones, makes the buns, and we make our own
Yeah.
chutney. And it's just a bit more connected. He doesn't need to know about that, but he's having a positive impact by coming to us. And then the
Yes.
person
Yes.
who is gluten free, they've come to us because they know that we're going to tick the box for them, and then their cousin and their daughter and all this, they're just going to get wrapped up in it and have a positive impact. So I guess
Mm.
that's why we did it. And that's what I love about hospitality and business in
Mm.
general, right? Because you can touch so many people by having a business compared to if you're employed, because now we've got thousands of people through the doors a week, and
Mm.
we get to have that impact, which I'm very,
Yes.
very blessed to have. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, Phil, because, it's funny. You can go along in life and you think, oh, yes, everything's fine. And you can listen to, we all should listen to what doctors say, but, you thought there's got to be a difference. And really took it in under your control to go, okay, well then what are we going to do? But not only did you keep it to yourself, but you shared it with others. And as you
Mm.
said, it's the impact now of tens, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, because it's not just the ones that dine there, it's the ones that dine there, but then talk about it and tell
Yeah.
others. And then that's that real ripple effect, isn't it? So it's amazing what you can do. But it's making that first step, isn't it, in actually going, you know what, this is going to be tough. And I'm sure it was, giving up all those things that you absolutely love, and then going, but this is going to be for the good of me and for my family in the future. So
Yeah, it's just like a course correction, and I think
yes,
you fight those pretty much all the time. And then
yes,
until you realize, like, there's this saying that, what is it? On the other side of your temporary discomfort is a new and better you. And
yes.
I love that. And it's just like realizing that it's only temporary and you'll figure out a way. And when you get through it, like, you'll be way better for it. So
Yes, yeah. And it's just doing that firstly and keeping with it. But it also depends. I think it works with the people that are around you too, that they can support you. And well, I'm much older than you, Phil, but I think for younger ones, they can be swayed into thinking, oh, this is just a fad health thing and we'll go on to something else. But when they've got somebody around them and go, hey, you know what, this is going to be much better for us for the long term, is fantastic, because you talk a lot about sustainability as well. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about that too with your business.
yeah, sorry, and just going back to that, like,
Mm.
belonging and being around people that you resonate with, that was another big thing for me that I think I've probably realized after doing the business, was the power of creating a place where people feel safe and connected through community. And that's just,
Mm.
um, but that's huge, and we're lucky to be able to do that in many ways. But yeah, so with sustainability, look, I mean, like health and sustainability, I feel goes hand in hand. It's kind of,
Mm.
just doing good for you and doing good for the planet. So like you can't really do one and not the other, because if
Yeah.
you've got those kind of ethics, then you're kind of going with both. And again, in the business, you've got so many opportunities to be able to make a positive impact on that. With your electricity, your gas, your materials
Mm.
used when you're building, your processes, your rubbish, your composting. So many little things you can do. I'm still amazed that people get amazed that we've got worm farms out the back. I'm like, why
Yeah.
doesn't everyone have a worm farm out the back? Like, you can get these things called hungry bins that are so efficient, and the worms just churn through your waste so fast.
Yes.
We've only got two of them out the back, but they probably do three-quarters of our waste from people's plates and
Yeah.
anything that we
Gosh.
might have from production. And yeah, from that to solar to we're doing now for Plastic Free July, just a thing for the kids in school holidays, like go to the beach and pick up a bit of rubbish in these buckets that we've got and come and get a free hot chocolate and just to get them engaged in those kind of things, which is cool. But you're always thinking of something else to do and asking our team for ideas.
Yes, yeah. And that's really important. And I love how you have these little fun experiential connections, particularly with the younger generation. And we're looking at the Gen Alpha now that, at the end of this year, there'll be nearly 2 billion of them in the world, and they're very much focused on sustainability. But 79% of their parents, which the majority of them are Gen Ys, are saying that they are very strong household influences. And I was up in Cairns a few weeks ago presenting at a business function, and I was talking about customer service and the different multiple generations. And this lady came up to me later on and she said, "Oh, Michelle," she says, "I've never thought about it, but," she goes, "I always wanted a red car." And she goes, "I went out, I took my 11-year-old daughter with me, and I ended up with a blue car." And I went, "Well, how did that happen?" And she goes, "Because my daughter said to me, red is too hot. Blue is much cooler. It's better for our planet. It's better about sustainability." And I think, this is going to be that generation that is really going to push home to the parents and grandparents that we've really got to be thinking about, we've got to be thinking seriously about sustainability and everything that goes with it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and it's actually even today, one of our juniors, she's only 14. She's working through the school holidays, and she said, "Oh, Phil, I noticed you're doing this beach clean initiative. If there's anything else like and volunteering, particularly environmentally, can you let me know? Because I want to really do
Mm,
it. I want to do it with my friends. It's just part of something we want to do once a week." And I was like, wow,
mm,
it's really like
yeah.
I haven't really received that many messages like that from the 20 or 30 or 40-year-old people that are working with us. The 14-year-old, she's all over it.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And that's where we've got to harness that energy from them and listen to them and go, okay, well, if they're wanting to do it, let's try and organise something that they can be involved in. And I know you love being involved in the community, so you've got this interactive education programs and these feature dinners. So can you share some examples of these initiatives and their impact on the community there at Manly and I presume the broader Northern Beaches area?
Yeah, yeah. Like I've just a few, I guess, off the top of my head. Some really fun ones are always the ice baths and breathing ones. So we'll just clear the outside deck and just put out like 15 ice baths, and we'll do breathing inside and ice baths outside, get all the drums and things going.
Yeah.
They're pretty good. We do that about once a year.
Mhm.
So like other really, my other probably favorite one is one called Dinner for Dads, and we do that a couple of times a year, 2 to 3 times a year, in conjunction with a local chiro and health coach and a men's mental health running group. And so
Mhm.
we'll invite any dads of the community to come in, and we'll just put on simple like burgers and kombucha beers and some non-alcoholic beers, and then
Mhm.
ask a couple of the older mentors in the group just to share some of their challenges and through that the different stages of fatherhood. And so you'll have
Yeah.
people that are, brand new babies, all the way up to an 85 or 90-year-old there sharing some experiences. And we'll have 50 people there for dinner at night. And the buzz is like it takes a while for the men to sort of,
Yes.
compared to some of the female events that we've had, which is just an instant party.
Yeah.
The dads, take a little bit of breaking down, but then eventually they open up and then no one wants to leave. And no, that's really rewarding, I suppose, being a male business
Yeah.
owner as well, being able to put that on.
I
Um,
love that.
other like more hands-on things like learning to ferment veggies and making your own bone broth, the female hormonal health ones where we bring in integrative GPs, nutritionists, and naturopaths to have like panel discussions on how to manage your health through the different stages of life are always very, very popular.
Mm.
So like eating for brain health to yeah, all sorts of things. They're great, and they're often led by the community, what they want to hear about, or maybe what a local doctor wants to talk about, or sometimes they're ideas we come up with, and we'll seek out someone to help out with those things. And I think it's, for me, like why we started Ruby Lane was to make it easy for people to find this information, right? And I
Mm.
think it's quite daunting to go out and say, okay, I'm going to book an appointment with my local naturopath, nutritionist, or GP to
Mm.
talk about some issue that I'm having. But it's easier to maybe just go to my local cafe for an info night on it, and I might just
Mm.
find out some info and find out if that's something I want to do more of. So we get these events, and they're pretty much always a sellout,
Yeah.
and like we'll just put them on for say, $30 or $40, so you can come along, have dinner, have a drink, learn some things. There's usually a goodie bag with about $150 worth of stuff in there
Gosh.
anyway, with all people like putting in that are relevant to the topic. And then people get to find this stuff out, and
Yeah.
that's another good feel good thing for us to be able to have that impact to spread that information.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. And I know, in this world we think, oh, nobody likes copycats, but in this scenario, are you finding that other businesses are coming to you, from, as you know, I'm down here in the Southern Highlands, so getting to the northern beaches, as much as I love the ferry ride to Melbourne, it's a heck of a long drive. So are there other businesses now saying, hey, Phil, we'd love to copy what you're doing. Can can we work with you? Can we learn from you?
It's a good question. I don't think like we're getting that direct reach out. Maybe there was a
Hmm.
couple of whole food places that opened, yeah, maybe 4 or 5 years ago that I can think of where we were having chats about, how do we make the food costs work in such a
Mm.
demanding, like traditionally high food cost kind of model. But we found a way. But yeah, not really. Like we just see more and more of those kind of concepts generally popping up around the country,
Mm.
which is awesome. Like at the more places that people have these kind of opportunities to eat and live that way, the better. And we've only grown through that process anyway. So
Yes,
yeah.
yeah. I just think, connecting the community with doctors and other health professionals and people with just different ideas and lived experiences. And I love a dinner with dads. I think that's a fantastic idea that they can just come and just hear about it. I'm just thinking there's so many other places that perhaps could do something similar because I think, when we had that, short blackout in our lives 5 years ago, it was
Yeah.
like, oh, well, it's nice to be peace and quiet. But then, we just crave that connection with humans. And it's still hard for some people to get back into that community. And I just feel in this situation, what you're, chatting about in your cafe is that even if there's somebody who lives by themselves, they could go there and still be a part of something, couldn't they?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another, I mean, hospitality does that innately anyway, just by being
Mm.
open and offering, good food and good coffee and good drinks. But going that next level, it is quite um, easy. And like we don't do that part to as a financial benefit. Like
No.
that's
Mm.
more of a like, because it's $30 a head. Sometimes it's $19 a head. But like
Mm.
it's like here we are. We believe that community is important and
Mm.
we're going to put these things on, come along and learn about it. And look, the kickback is that we get incredible branding. Like, what better
Yes.
marketing can you get for your business than that?
Yeah.
That you're just walking the talk and
Mm.
bringing, and I'm always there at those events and I love just chatting with people and learning about their experiences and introducing the speakers. And um, like, why not? Well, like, if you're a cafe space, you closed at 3 or 4 o'clock. What's the venue doing after hours?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you're only doing it on when the time works for you. So it's once a month, or maybe it's
Mm.
once every 6 weeks, and it's on a Wednesday night. I know that, if my kid's soccer practice is on that day, I organize a sub coach, and that's done. It's easy. Anyway.
Perfect. Well, let's hope some of my listeners think to themselves, look, I could do something about because I've had some amazing guests that have talked about the sustainability when it comes to, repurposing old kitchens and, different things that they're doing in their cafes. But this idea of connecting community with the cafe, and as you said, it's at night time, you can choose your time, but it's that community spirit, which I absolutely love. So great. I better move on. Otherwise, my mind is tweaking, because I'm just thinking of some of the people that I've had on here, thinking that could be something that they would, certainly be able to take note from you and have some conversations. Now, talking about ingredients, because we've heard about the farm to plate, paddock to plate, whatever you call about it, and it's wonderful. But how do you actually source your ingredients, as well as making sure that they do align with your sustainability goals? Because it's not always easy, is it?
No. And I like this question. It's because it's very recent for us as well. So I thought I'd just give one example, I suppose, where we've just changed our coffee supplier, and this is our first week where we're using our coffee supplier.
Right.
So, and I won't mention the previous brand, but like our old bar manager, who was with us for a couple of years, an absolute legend, he moved on to become a national coffee trainer for this bigger company.
Wow.
But we're still Australian and New Zealand, and were set up very well. But then they got bought out by a multinational stock exchange company. And I was like, okay, look, everything else was still fine. The relationship with the business was good. My old bar manager was still there. But something just didn't sit quite right with me, as far as I'm all about local. We're using local suppliers as much as we can, and we produce everything in-house. And I just thought, okay, so people are going to buy a coffee with us, and then we buy the coffee from them, and then that goes to who? To
Yes.
huge shareholders
Another
that are
conglomerate.
offshore. I was like, I'm like, why I can't keep doing this for any longer. So I started looking around and met some people at some other events, and I ended up finding somebody who is really involved with the local community, which, as you know, is very important to me. They give back to charities. They're involved in some running clubs that I go to as well. And we just bonded and got along really well. So I got to know more about them. And I didn't go straight away, like, this is the one. I'm sure in my mind I was thinking this is going well. Had a tour, went out for lunch, went out for dinner, went out for breakfast, went for runs, and I just went over for a couple of months. I was like, but this guy's just giving back. He's not putting a sale on at all. He just wants to make good connections, and his business is fine. He doesn't need my business. And I was like, I like that style of operating, and I know it's him, and he's small enough where I can always call him. And that was it. I was like, great. I have to do business with you. Let's make this happen. When can we? When he was like, oh, I didn't really I wasn't putting a sell on you. I just think you're a really cool dude. And I was like, okay, well, I think you're a cool dude, so let's do business. And isn't that nice to do?
It's lovely.
Like that? I mean, yeah.
It's that organic growth, but it's connecting with another small business operator who is there to make that connection. It's not about, in the early days, I remember, people say, oh, you've got to network, you walk into, this, I'm going to sound very old now, you walk into a function, you paid your $22 or whatever it is, it's literally tattooed onto your forehead, and you're going to pass out $22 worth of business cards. And we're thinking, it's just this hard pressure sale, but it's not on. But here you are, you're running, you're having fun, you're having a laugh, and it's that connection which is so key. And I'm seeing so much more of this collaboration between small businesses in the last few years, and even in the last few months. I mean, this is beautiful. That's what business is about, isn't it? Helping each other. Small business, that's what it's all about.
Oh, 100%. And that when I can't remember the sum, isn't there? When you spend $1 with a local supplier, then that dollar turns into a bigger and bigger amount and benefits the local community, right? And it's much easier these days, I would say. Even when we first opened, a lot of the local suppliers were very, very small, and the technology wasn't there to support small local businesses. And they'd be running out of stock, and you're like, oh, if you want to do an order with them with Sprouts, you have to text this person, email that guy, call this person, do a WhatsApp message for this guy. I'm just like, this is impossible. I don't know if I can do this anymore. This is too hard. But it's gotten so much easier now because of technology, and we can use third-party apps to send through all our purchase orders.
Yes,
You're doing business with big businesses, but they're all still just the small players, which is good. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. But it's funny, some they've all got their own little system. Well, actually, they don't even have a system. They just
Or
grow
not, yeah.
something and they think, oh, but the restaurant will know where I am. No, they won't, and you've got to have something that is going to be able to scale up in a way that works well for them as the producer as well as you as the restaurateur. Oh, it's crazy. So you're talking about these ingredients, and then we look at that connection of people thinking, oh, whole foods, that sounds healthy. How does that actually, what's that perception from people when you first open the doors and there you've got, because I love, I looked at your menu and I'll admit, Phil, I'm not a healthy person. I'm a
Come
fussy
on.
eater. I'm a really fussy eater. And the first thing, I'm looking through it, and then I saw the healthy elixirs, and right underneath it was the chicken bone broth. And I grew up on a turkey farm. And so turkey and, having that broth was something that you'd always have, particularly, when you're feeling, like you're getting the cold or whatever it might be. It was always have chicken broth. It'll, do you wonders.
Oh,
So it doesn't it? It's a bit of
I
fun.
feel good.
So why did you put that on the menu?
Oh, it's just exactly that. Like it's kind of always been Nana's tonic, for
Yeah.
making you feel good and getting you a little bit better. And it's one of those old wives' tales that's not actually that's a true. I think they're all old wives' tales are probably true anyway, but this has got to be one of the truest ones. And look at that, like we got you with something. You might have looked through there and
Yes.
go, oh, this is all a bit weird, a bit of funny, but oh, bone broth, I can have that.
Yes.
I like that. And
Yes.
that's kind of like our menu is pretty varied and diversified to be able to go like, okay, there's something for everybody without being too labor intensive. And yeah, there
Well,
we go.
there were lots of things on your menu that I could have. I just pick off bits.
But yeah, with that, like trying to make it, not sound healthy, that's a real interesting question as far as like being able to back yourself in the niche that you've decided to operate in, right? Like
Yes.
and I'll admit for the first couple of years, I was very wobbly on that. And I was like, ooh, should I cut the name Whole Foods? Should we just be Ruby Lane and just
Yeah.
do really good food? And it'll just be good food that just so happens to be healthy for you. But then I realized that you've got to back yourself in that. Like if it's particularly if it's a growing trend, and I like it's a growing trend.
Yes.
It's everywhere, and particularly more and more these days. And I learned to just go, yep, you know what? There's heaps more people out there like me and like the community that I know, and it's just about getting smarter on how to speak to them and
Yes.
what do they want to know. Like they don't want to know, okay, hey, we do bacon, we do eggs. They want to know who is the supplier, this is where it
Yes.
comes from, this is why we chose it, and this is the guy's name that bakes the bread, and that kind of thing. And he's our chef, and it's just learning to tell those stories, I guess.
Yes, it is. So how do you find that if this is how you're talking to your customers to attract them, do you feel that same conversation is attracting the right team members? You were talking about that amazing 14-year-old at the start. Do you feel that's also attraction because they know what your values are?
Yes, definitely. And it definitely helps with retention as well. I think when you've got that right person, and okay, we haven't got a huge team, we've got about 28 staff. And if they, and do we always have 28 that are like right into everything that we do? No, but we might have the majority, like we might have 18, 19, 20 people that are really singing with that, but they help the rest sort of get it and understand it. And like, I think the last 10 hires I've done would all be from just checking my inbox. So
Right.
like I don't have to go on to go and look to go do an ad on Jaw or Seek or Facebook or something like that because people they just want to be and that's again that power to marketing to your niche, right? Like so
Yes.
they're in there and they all know people and they want to work with like-minded people as well because it's more fun and it's easier for them to work like that. They can sell
Yes.
food that they get, then it's a better day at the end of the day. So yeah, we're very lucky.
Yeah. Do you find also that some of them have been customers of yours that have come in with, either they're old enough to come in and pay for their own meal or they've come with their parents or grandparents and have enjoyed the experience and have sat back and going, I want to be part of this team?
Oh yeah, for sure. That and even like the teachers at the local high schools,
Yeah.
them recommending to their students, and then them coming along. And yeah, we've just hired this week actually one of our customers, and I think all the juniors that we've got are all daughters of our customers. So
Perfect.
that can have its challenges as well, because there's when it comes to performance management, but yeah, about being just a good communicator in those circumstances.
Yes, yes, yeah, no, look, that's great. So, look, Ruby Lane has won several awards, as I mentioned at the start, including the Northern Beaches Sustainability Award and the Sydney Water Sustainability Award. What do these accolades mean to you? But also, what do they mean to your team?
Yeah, I think it's more for them, like for sure, because I think it's just confirmation that you're doing the right thing in business for the business owner, but for the team, it's confirmation for them that they're working for someone that cares. And I like that. That's huge. I think if I was going to work for someone and I think that they were just doing it for the money, then it just only gets you so far. Like if there's someone who's being honorable and transparent and, like I said before, walking the talk, um, then when I ask them to do something, then they know why. I'm always going to
Yes.
say why anyway, but they kind of get it. And they're like, oh, yeah, well, we can't. I'm like, you keep throwing the bottles in the wrong bin. Like
Yeah.
look at them. Oh, yeah, sorry, I know. Yeah, because you did. That's just a basic example. Right? Or you just look at a chef maybe that's just prepped something and done way more waste than should have been, and when they've done a box of capsicums and then
Yeah.
okay, it's great, it's going to the worms, but like
Mm.
our food costs are going to be going up if you're doing that. And like, yeah, it just gives you a different level
Yes.
of conversation that you can have with people because of what
Mm.
you're trying to do.
It's interesting, isn't it? I went. I usually do a food tour each year. We go over to Chicago for the National Restaurant Association. Have you been over
Wow.
there for that?
No, I don't.
Oh gosh, got a toothpick? You just spend your whole time with a toothpick eating. But apart from that, on this food tour, I go with the RSL Services Clubs. Is we usually do back of house somewhere, and we went. Behind the Boston Conference Center, and there they were showing us, the executive chef, how the wastage was huge, and so he gave each chef this really tiny bucket, and I mean really, really tiny, and they had to put their waste in that each day, and then it had to be weighed at the end of the shift,
Yeah.
and it was also a photograph taken of it, and wow, it didn't take them very long to realize that they could use a lot more of the bits and pieces, as you were saying, instead of just, taking off all the leaves and throwing them in the bin of the lettuce. What could you use? But it was interesting. And that's going back, what's probably 6 years ago now. And it was just, what can we do to reduce that amount of wastage? Yes, it puts up costs, but it's just a waste of food that we
I
can,
know, and I love the
yeah.
technology that you can use to help with that now, right? Like
Yes.
some of the apps that we're looking to use later on in the year, where it
Mm.
does require them to take photos of everything, and then everyone sees it. Then there's no hiding.
Yes, yes,
From that.
there's no hiding whatsoever. So you've had multiple venues. And when it comes to multiple venues, it's, I know with my clients that they will start expanding their dining, offerings, but I always feel it does come down to the manager. Because once you start doing all these different venues, you start to think you can't be there as the owner across every, particularly if there's, quite a distance between each one. So how have you found in the past dealing with multiple venues and the teams and the leaders that you develop within those organizations to, drive the business like you do if you were there?
Yeah, it is challenging, like because I think particularly if you're going to go and open, say, your second venue and you're going to have two venues, the challenge I've found with the perception of the management team um, is they think there's going to be this huge leap up in, oh, okay, I'm going to be an area manager and then I'm going to be doing this. And it's like, actually, we've just got to dig deep and everyone's just doing
Yeah.
more of the really hard stuff. And
Mm,
maybe the owner removes themselves to do more on the business, but it's still a lot of work. And you don't really get that space for area managers and training managers and someone to do all the marketing across the venues and those
mm,
real economies of scale until you really get to three or four, depending on the size of the business, obviously. But Yeah, that's definitely a challenge to communicate with the team to make sure
Mm.
they just understand that. And okay, there's going to be some opportunity, and that's part of the best bit to,
Yes.
encourage that retention a little bit more and to be like, there is going to be more opportunity, there's going to be growth, we are growing, but just, keep your pants on. It's it's just one extra venue. And then if we do another one, okay, we're doing another one. But then like making sure we're rewarding along the way, right? We're not going to be
Yes,
able to
definitely.
achieve these other venues if we weren't successful in the first place. So let's keep that
Mm.
momentum going. And it really comes down to those systems, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's the really rewarding thing because it forces you to put the systems in because you have to be completely really out of there as much as
Mm.
possible as the owner to make sure the systems are working and everyone's following those. And then
Mm.
that's just, oh, I mean, it's a dream when they all work, isn't it? You sound like a bit of a nerd when you say that, but it's just so good.
It is, but it's you feel like sometimes I know, with my clients, I feel like, hitting them over the head with a stick because I say to them, you've got to have these systems in place. Oh, it takes just so much time. It's just quicker if I do it myself. It's going to be done the right way if I do it. And I go, I know that's how it feels, but if you put it into a system, then it gives somebody else the opportunity to learn and gives somebody else the opportunity to grow. And you
Yeah.
know that it's going to be done well, but it can be hard sometimes for people to pull back from being the owner or that particular person in that role in sharing in how to do it,
There's a
letting go of the reins.
lot of trust in that process, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
it is. It is. And, nobody's ever going to do it probably 100% as you, but at least you've got to give them that opportunity and show them because you can't be in 100 places at once.
Well, no, and if you think of like a return on investment of that point as
Mm,
well, right? Then if someone else can do your job, but they're doing it at 90%, okay, so you've lost 10% of your productivity. But with that 10%, you've freed yourself up like 10
yes.
hours to go and
Yeah.
open up another venue that's going to double
Mm,
your revenue. That like, come on, like I think
yes.
when you see that and understand it, that's pretty good.
Yes, they've just sometimes you just got to show it to them, and then the light bulb moment comes on. Now, we've had some really interesting times since we've had that COVID shutdown seeing a lot of restaurants not reopening or perhaps changing their menus, scaling it right down, even changing their operating hours. Where do you see, and I know, Ruby Lane Whole Foods is extremely successful there in Manly, but where do you see the hospitality going, in the next 5 years? Where do you see it? Any
As an
changes?
as an industry, yeah. I mean, I
Mm.
suppose from internally, like the systems now available to the single operator that might just be a cafe are so advanced. I see
Mm.
like that's an opportunity for people to be able to run more efficiently, and there's a lot of cost pressures coming. But if you're using all these things that can control your wastage, control your time, and you've got your
Mm.
POS speaking with your HR system, and you can really get down to the minute of where is the right time to be putting people on and negotiating with your suppliers because it's all aggregated in there, and you can do your
Mm.
purchase orders from your point of sale, just like Macca's or Hungry Jack's, even if you're just a small little cafe. Like
Yeah.
it's awesome. But I think the challenges of that is if you're not embracing it, you are going to get left behind in the dust and it's
Yes.
going to be blamed on the costs and the change. And it's like, well, yeah,
Mm.
but there is change and you didn't embrace it. And that's what
Yes.
I see when I look around at a few of the places in my local area that haven't been able to make it through, unfortunately, is that okay, yes, we've got to pay homage to that. It's been very mentally tough to get through those periods, and that
Mm.
is understandable. But if you got through that and then couldn't make the KPIs work, then I think it's just not using enough of that technology. But then
Mm.
I think, like from the customer's point of view, right, that's the other side. Is look, we've got an ability to work with more local people because of these systems that we can use, and they're going to want to know more and more. Like everything is getting more transparent, right? You can get a
Yes.
QR code on your milk and find out the cow it came from. Like, so if you can do that at the supermarket, then I think the pressures are going to be there on with that kind of messaging from the local place that has been
Yes.
talking about that they've been
Mm.
doing local. It's like, well, are you? I want to know. Like, tell me
Yes. Yes. Yes.
talk about it and shout it from the rooftops. And
Mm.
yeah, I think look, we're lucky to be in this era with all these tools at our hands.
Mm.
Yeah.
We are. I think what's what's interesting? You know, when you're talking about telling that story from the farmer, you know, we hear, you know, we may read it in the menu, or it may say, you know, on the description that this comes from XY farm. But what I see so often, you know, because I train on the frontline team, is they don't know the story because the story's perhaps been told to the owner from the producer, but it hasn't always been shared in full detail that that frontline, that wait person can say, oh, did you know it comes from here? And I think that's that missing key part, that we need those front team people to understand the why and where and how they can share that, and having that conversation with people that not only
Totally.
perhaps may sell you more, but also they go, wow, this is really interesting. You know,
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
real.
my brother took my dad out for his birthday to this winery in Mudgee for a beautiful degustation.
Which one? My
Um,
daughter lives up
uh,
there.
oh, you know, I don't remember. I just remember the story that they were telling me, which is pretty bad because the story is that like the waiter came out and the steak was part of the degustation, one of the courses, and they said, you know, oh, and this one came from Betty, you know, was the cow's name. And my stepmom's a vegetarian, and my sister's a real environmentalist and not really into it. But my brother and my dad were like, oh, how is this? Betty. Anyway, we divided the table, you know, it was a table of eight, and half of them loved it, half of them hated it. But they're all like the amount of times they've gone around and told the story because the waiter, you know, had the product knowledge and was telling that
Yes.
story is, I mean, how powerful like is that? Yeah.
It is. I'm wondering if that might be Zen Restaurant, because they have an amazing degustation menu where it's all locally sourced. But I actually had a young girl, well, she's a chef, she has her own business down here in Moss Vale, Eilish Maloney, and her business is called the What If Society. And she
Mm.
shared on the podcast how, you know, it's her sister who has a property, so she gives her the whole beast. And so then Eilish learned how to butcher. So she butchers all her own meat, and she does all these whole foods, and she gets the crockery made by the local potter, but everything has got a story. So, and you don't have a menu. So as soon as you walk in there, it's just, you'll have, if you're ever down this way, you'll have to go there because it's crazy. It's just got these like three or four titles of the price, but you don't know what you're going to get on the plate. And for a fussy eater, that is really scary. But it's what, you know, it's that produce of the day, but it's all about that story that she shares, as well as her whole team. Like you were just saying, you know, out there, it's like, well, there's Betty the cow. That's a part of life, but we're using all of it.
Yeah.
I love the
Yeah.
stories.
Isn't it great? Like, and that's the experience that we're going out for. We can all cook,
Mm.
you know, some eggs and toast at home, but like you want to go out and have a bit of a chat and be wooed and talk about the food and where it's coming from. So, like, more the merrier, right?
Yes, yeah, having a little bit of fun. All right, well, before we wrap up, I really want to ask you about the supporting your charities there, like such as the Local Kind, Royal Far West, and Head High Skills. Can you tell us a little bit more about these partnerships and why are they so important to you?
Yeah, we've dealt with worked with a few charities over the years, and like choosing Local Kind, which is probably the Northern Beaches biggest one, was really important for me because I wanted to make a difference to my local area. You know, it was like you can't change the world, just change the little area that you're in, and then you know the butterfly effect of that. So I was like, well, it's always hard. Like, oh, do I believe in this or do I believe in that? Do I want to feed the homeless? Do I want to mental health? I'm like, well, these guys do all of it. And I'm like, oh, great, okay. We'll just give you some money. We'll do some charity events. We'll do some volunteering with you, and you just broadly help the entire community. And for me, I was like, great, I can have a big impact on the
Yes.
whole local area because it's very, very local too. It's literally
Mm.
family to palmy, and that's it. So that was a no-brainer for me, and they were expanding, wanting to do more. Their government funding was getting less, and I was like, okay, great. So we did a thing. I was like, okay, what's an interesting way we can engage the community to do that? Like, okay, we've got these frozen take-home meals that we make in the fridge, in the freezer that change every week. And so for every meal that we sell, we donate one to them as well.
Wow.
And then we put on like an annual thank you for their volunteers. So we just put on a big cocktail party, and so we get a few of our suppliers to help out with that. Our staff donate their time for that as well, and yeah, we just put on a big thank you dinner for them. But when we did that for them the other day, a couple of months ago, and they're like, no one ever does anything like this for us. You know, the full of Volunteers Day, like you get a National Volunteers Day, but to have
Yes.
a full free big cocktail party put on with
Mm.
music and everything, like yeah, it was very rewarding. So
Yeah.
that was great. Head high skills. That was yeah, that's more of a mental working with just people with a disability. They were trying to do a local cafe in the area and they didn't
Mm-hmm.
really know any of the systems and they were really
No.
struggling with volunteers to be able to do that. And so that was really just donating time and going, right, how do we
Yeah.
get from the customer to the kitchen and the coffee
Mm.
machine and help you guys make it easier? And then I ended up going in there and working with them because it was just a
Yeah.
lot of fun. Like it's just fun. Like there's something in us, I think, where we're supposed to give back. You know, if you get
Yes.
that much feedback from when you do good, then it must be right. You know, like
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
they've said that, well, like the number one of the best ways to reverse depression is to go and do something for someone else.
Yes.
So it's like
Mm.
it's programmed in us to give back. So I'm just like,
Mm.
whatever we can do to give back, then not that you should give back for receiving. Just
Mm.
I tell my kids at Christmas, but but
It goes down like a lead balloon.
yeah, but yeah, it's amazing the feedback you get from it. It's a great thing to do.
Yeah, and look, it is lovely because without volunteers, I don't think the world would turn because we rely on them so much that it just. I think to some people it's just a given. Oh well, it'll be set up. This will be done. But you're thinking these are volunteers that are doing this. These are people that are not doing it for any sort of a pat on the back or money. It's just they want to donate their time because they want to help others, and it's giving
Mhm.
people a purpose. And I think that's just beautiful. And it's not only what you do, but then your whole team are involved and they see it's happening. But the customers that see you connecting, it just, as I said, it's that ripple effect that can make such a difference to a community, which is beautiful. I think it's,
Yep.
you've got a fantastic business. So where do you see the future of Ruby Lane Whole Foods? Where will we see you in another year, 2 years? Phil, what's the
I'm
grand
not,
plan?
yeah. I'm not very good at looking that far in the future. I think sometimes I do, and then my wife's like, "Far out, chill out, Phil. Like, what are we doing next month? Let's think about that. What are we doing next month?" So I have really, and she's a very good mentor for me. She's like a health coach, and
Lovely.
her parents were counselors, and so she's always keeping me in line. But thank you, Katie. So look, we're more like, okay, what do we want to do by Christmas? And I think we're just going
Yes,
to do more of our retail range because that's getting really popular, and maybe partnering with some local distributors so we can get our brand and our food out into the broader community and
perfect.
stretch those boundaries a little bit more, and just do more functions because I just think
Yeah.
we're right by the beach and we're closed after 4. We do maybe one a month, but
Mm.
we don't do enough. And I really think there's an opportunity for people that are health conscious to have more options when they
Yes.
want to have a birthday and that kind of thing. So that's
Yeah.
that's just our goal. That's it. It's pretty small. It's not open up another 10 venues or anything like that. Yeah, and
Do,
just keep
do
keep up killing the team.
Yes, yes, yeah, and just keep that ball rolling, but doing what you love, which is what is so important. So our final question, can you share a memorable experience or lesson learned from your time in the hospitality industry that has significantly impacted your approach to running Ruby Lane Whole Foods?
Yeah, good one. I think for this, to be brutally honest, it was when we'd finished our first term in our lease and we had to exercise, or had the choice, right, to exercise your second option. It's a big
Mm,
window of opportunity to really look at your business and like, okay, we've done 7 years, are we going to do another 7? Like,
mm,
we're going to go all out and signing that and then going, okay, we're going to do that. But then that's in your business cycle, that's the opportunity to sell if you wanted to sell, right? And
yes.
it's like, how do I really assess this? And that process I went through, it took about 6 months actually to really pull the business apart, pull my life apart, and go, which, COVID gave us a lot of perspective on that as well. Am
Mm,
I doing what I really want to do? Have my ethics and values changed? What are they in my
mm,
life? And then how do they transpire into my business?
yeah.
And what do I see myself doing in another 7 years' time? Like,
Yeah.
it's a tricky question to answer, and it's
Yes.
quite unsettling to go through that. And
Mm,
talk with a few mentors and a business coach, and obviously my wife, and my parents, and some other friends in the industry, to really work out, like, is this what I want to do? And
mm,
it was amazing. And I'll be honest, like, it was close at one point, but then once we made that decision and we got through all that and realized, like, it gives me everything that I want and
yeah.
everything that I love, and it is true to my values. Like,
Mm,
I've come out of the gates after that with a whole nother level, and it's operating better now than, and I think with more passion now than when we first opened, because not only
wow.
have we got those values and that passion back, but we know how to do it. Like, we've got the
Yes.
experience in the system. So it's not like we're having to learn how to
Mm,
reinvent the wheel again. It's like, okay, well, here we go. We just go from where we are and we can keep on going higher. And
mm,
it's more fulfilling now, I guess, because
yes.
of going through that. So now I think it's like, okay, don't wait another 7 years to do that
No.
again. Maybe you should do a mini version of that every year, and just like, it keeps you on track. Well, and I mean,
Yes.
when they say you're supposed to take count of what you do every day, right? Or every hour, or every half day. But like, just doing more of that has been my lesson for sure.
Well, that's wonderful. Phil, at the start of this conversation, you said your family wanted you to pop down to the beach. So we better end this conversation, even though I'd love to continue talking to you, because that, that's your breath, that's your whole life, is your family and your beautiful wife, Katie. Thank you so much for sharing your story at the start, how you came to all this, but also to my listeners to hear about what they can do in their businesses to not only grow their own business, but to grow themselves, to have that purpose in their life, and then broaden that out to their team and their community. It's been a really wonderful and fun conversation. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you, Michelle. Like, your passion for what you do in the industry is just absolutely, like, coming through the pores, and it's awesome to connect. Yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this week's podcast. I do hope you enjoyed it and had some aha and takeaway moments from my guests, but also from what I share with you to implement in your business and share with your team and others who you may know in business themselves. I always love talking about the customer experience and developing leaders from within, and therefore my signature program, Middle Management Movement, as well as the excellence and engagement frontline customer service training, is what I specialize in. So please contact me at michelle@michellepascoe.com. And of course, I'd love to have a review on this podcast. If you've enjoyed it, it would be wonderful to hear from you. Take care. Bye. Thank you for joining me on this episode, and I do hope that you heard some real moments of aha, something that you're going to implement into your business and perhaps even share with your team. I'd love to hear more of your thoughts about what was discussed on the podcast today, or perhaps even in previous podcasts. It's always nice to get a review, and you can always reach out to me through email on michelle@michellepascoe.com, or certainly connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to share with you more about the customer service programs that I offer and my special signature program, Middle Management Movement, for the development of your leadership team in middle management through to CEOs. Thank you for listening. Take care.